Hey watch friends, today we're going to check out the second offering from the Singaporean microbrand UBIQ, and this is their upcoming model, the Trek. This one's launching on Kickstarter on June 21st of 2025. I'll of course have a link down the video description if you care to check that out. While today we're going to be looking at a prototype, if you saw that banner up there, they do intend to send me a production version, and I always of course want to be upfront about that. Before we dive into this watch, let's go ahead and first take a quick look at the packaging because this comes with pretty slick setup here. Just like the rest of the watch, they went pretty playful with the packaging for this. You have a fairly basic for the exterior box. However, when you pop that open, they actually have on the inside, you can see this very bold, very fun with the information about this particular version. And then you can just slide this off for the slip cover. As you open that up, this is where it gets neat. You see this little pull strap here, branded on the outside. You can see a little bit of like a holographic effect there. But then as you open that up, check this out. You pop that open, and you actually have two drawers. So up here, you have your warranty card, again, carrying through with that holographic. Just very fun design for this overall. And then you can see for the warranty card information, set that aside. Then down here, you just have a little informational booklet on the watch. Open that up, check that out. You can pause if there's anything you want to see there. And then inside, just a nice practical, this is all recyclable there. And then on the inside, the actual true, what they intend to be for the watch. You can see it is branded here with the UBIQ. It's like a canvas type watch roll, then just has a strap there. Open that up. It's really just a single pouch as far as the watch itself would be down in there. And then you have two slots for your straps as well. So I think well done packaging overall. Fairly basic, while at the same time still having plenty of punch. Alright, now that we have a better feel for how this is going to ship, let's take a deeper dive into this particular model, see what makes it tick, so to speak, check out the different variations, what it's like to live with, and then we'll wrap things up with the pros and cons. First, for the warranty, this comes standard with a 2-year warranty. The case on my calipers, measured from roughly the 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock position, is coming in at 38.3 millimeters. The bezel, for all intents and purposes, is flush with that very subtle curvature to it, coming in dead on at the lip there at 38 millimeters. The lugs are a strap change friendly 20 millimeters. The lug to lug is a pretty compact 43.9 millimeters. The total thickness is coming in at a reasonable 11.4 millimeters, and that is inclusive of the crystal. The crystal itself is a flat sapphire crystal, and it does include inner AR coating. As far as the movement, this is actually available in 2 different versions. The one we're looking at today features a Seiko VH31, which is a mecha quartz movement. So if you're wondering, with it being a mecha quartz, what makes it the mecha there, as you can see, the second hand does still tick. So yeah, it's going to be more abrupt. It's a low beat for that tick, but I actually find it has a pretty decent sweep to it overall. But there's also, for those who are purists and want an automatic movement, there is a Miyota 9039 version as well. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's going to be basically the no-date version of the more common 9015. So you're going to have automatic, higher beat, hacking, hand winding, all that kind of good stuff that you'd expect from the excellent Miyota 9 series. So really 2 good movement choices, and we'll talk about the pricing differences between those 2 options. As far as the water resistance, this comes standard with 100 meters or 10 atmospheres of water resistance. Not too bad for the sports styling. I think that that's kind of the minimum that I would want to see for a field watch, but really you don't need any higher for a field-oriented watch because it's not like it's intended to be a deep diver here. As far as the weight, this thing is an absolute featherweight. So the construction, as we'll look at, is full titanium. This on this bracelet is coming in at 77.4 grams. That is size to my 6.5 inch wrist there, but that is on the bracelet under 80 grams. Excellent there. Additionally, though, there are 2 strap versions that this does include standard. That's an optional bracelet, and we'll talk about the pricing as well. But there are there's the marine plastic, so this is actually a recycled marine plastic version, and this is coming in at 44.2 grams. That's the lightest. And then there is this single pass nylon strap, so like a NATO style strap, that's coming in at 47.7 grams. So no matter how you configure this, whether it's on the bracelet or one of the straps, it's going to be extraordinarily light, and we'll talk about that as far as what it's like to live with. So with the basic specs out of the way, let's go ahead and dive deeper and actually see what this one's like. There are 4 different color versions that are available. There's, of course, the blue that we're looking at today. There's additionally a black version, and all of these do have color accents and pops, as you'll see on that black version. There's additionally 2 full lume variants. So there's a fluorescent orange that's a full lume, and then there's additionally a really cool gradient color green. So that kind of goes from like a yellow to a greenish color, predominantly green, but it does have those hints of yellow, and that is a full lume as well. So that's really cool there. As far as the dial finishing, I would describe this as being kind of like a satiny finish. It's more matte as far as appearance overall, but it does have a little bit of that satiny sheen to it, so I think that's a pretty good description there. As far as the dial layout, you're going to have printing at the 12 o'clock with their brand name, and then down at the 6 o'clock position, you can see a color complemented for the model name, as well as the water resistance in a bar type rating there. Once you move out towards the perimeter, you can see that this does feature individual hashes, so you're going to have plenty of precision legibility. That's going to be for your minutes or your seconds for that layout there. You do have more prominent at the 5-minute increments as you'd expect, and then additionally you do have the color accents at the cardinal with the 3, 6, and 9 for that. As you move out further, you can see that this does also have a chapter ring. So it has a true chapter ring there. And this is going to be a 24-hour, specifically the second half of the 24-hour kind of layout there for this. So you can see, again, this is in this particular version, you're looking at a black chapter ring, but it does feature, again, with that kind of clean incorporation all the way throughout with the accent color, which on this particular one is that lime green coloration. Additionally, though, as you look just inside of that, coming back to the chapter ring, you can see the right before the 12, there is a hash that's a color accent there as well, and that's to signify 11:59, the last minute of the day, which is of significance in Singapore. So just a little nice nod for them in paying homage to their native land. Shifting over to the hardware on this is what I would describe as being a blunted sword layout for your hour and your minute hand. As far as the finishing, you're going to notice on your minute hand as well as your second hand that is going to be a polished finish, but then on your hour hand, you do have a nice, very vibrant color accent pop there. I really like this green against that blue, very nice accent there, but each of those is going to feature a similar layout. As far as the second hand itself, with going out for that polishing, you can see that that does also have out towards the lollipop tip. It does have a color accent out there as well. Shifting over to the markers, you can see these markers, really, you can't miss these markers. Excellent contrast, and that's going to be true of all of the different variants, but especially against these darker dials like the black and the blue here. But those are going to be 3D applied loom blocks. This is BGW9, which we'll check out here shortly. What that does for you is it really adds a nice depth during the day. It adds excellent contrast against the dial, but then it also, as we'll see, has some really cool nighttime effect as well. You're going to be looking at numerals at your 12, 3, 6, and 9. So just like with keeping with your hashes out there on your printed chapter ring or your inner chapter ring there, that sticks with that overall layout. And then in between that, you're going to have like rounded squares rather, so like a squircle for that. Shifting over to the loom itself, the loom on this is excellent. It is very, very strong application. You have, like I said, a lot of depth to this with having those 3D blocks. So you're getting excellent. It's a grade A BGW9, so you get excellent performance and endurance for it. As I walked in from outside when this was out in the sunshine and just naturally coming in, it was lighting up like a torch. Same thing for overall endurance and performance here. No complaints there. But additionally, what I really like is as you look at this from different angles and move it across lighting, there's not a lot of light dial play because this isn't the sunburst or anything, but you do get a lot of light transition as you see those blocks. Even with fairly direct lighting on it, those blocks still really glow through, so that's excellent there, and that's just a testament to the overall performance of this. So great touch on that. Very happy with that. As far as the bezel on this, as you'd expect for a field style watch, is a fixed construction. It does have a clean slope to it, so it really pretty seamlessly comes from the case, and it just continues with that case curvature and tapers up for that. You're going to look at polish accent there, and then that transitions over to brushing towards the face, which I think is a great call. Gives you that little kiss of kind of fancying it up a bit and adding some contrast with the polish, while at the same time staying true to its more tool type design and construction there. So that's excellently done. Additionally, the fitment as a whole, I just think that's really cleanly incorporated. It gives almost that one piece kind of look. Great bezel overall there as well. As far as the case, as I already mentioned at the outset, this is going to be full titanium construction. That's going to be true of all the variants. Then, specifically, you're looking at grade 2 titanium. Additionally, though, all of them are going to have a coating. So the question is it going to be when it's more of this like natural looking titanium? That's going to be a hardened coating. That's actually 1200 Vickers. So excellent scratch resistance there, and a huge boon, especially on titanium that's otherwise easy to scratch. There's additionally a DLC, so your black versions, that is a DLC coating. That unfortunately does lower your Vickers rating, so that's going to be down to 600 Vickers, so still significantly better than titanium or even stainless steel. I believe about double stainless steel if I recall correctly for that. So still good scratch resistance, just not quite as impressive as this more natural looking titanium with its hardened coating. The actual construction of the case, you can see this is like what I would call a slab style. It actually reminds me of a black bay, a Tudor black bay as far as the overall case shape, where it's relatively flat, though it does have a subtle downturn to the lugs, but no complaints there because the case back is thin enough. You don't get a flying saucer effect or anything like that, as we'll see it on the wrist here shortly. As I mentioned, with the downturn for the lugs, actually first, for finishing, it's a very, very faint brushing. So that runs with a horizontal brushing running the length of the case. It is so faint, in fact, that I actually had to double check to make sure this wasn't a sandblasting, but as I look real closely, you can see just a real faint grain to that. So it kind of walks that line nicely, which I think is pretty cool, again, with a tool style. As you move out for the downturn lugs, you can see that these lugs are also drilled there as well. So that makes it real nice and easy to change around straps. This does feature quick release spring bars on all of the options, but if you want to put on one of your own that doesn't have those, you do have the option of just going in from the outside as well, which is excellent there, especially on a field type watch. The bracelet is going to be fitted here, as you can see, with the end links. The lugs are interesting here, of a little bit of thickness and heft to them as far as visually, but they're actually pretty delicate lugs overall. But then the thing I like there is it does have that cut in, which just gives some visual interest, I think, for that, and just really helps to accentuate the overall shape of the case. It is going to be flat in between, so that makes it more strap change friendly, in my opinion, than a fitted end link, or curved, I should say, end link would, so you don't have those gaps there. The end links will come back to that here shortly, but despite the fact that they are fitted, there is a little bit of play to that. We'll look at that more. As you move over to the 3 o'clock side, you can see that this does not include a crown guard, which I don't think is a problem with this field type styling. As far as the crown itself, it is a screw down construction, so it does screw in even on this quartz version. It is 5.8 millimeters, which doesn't sound very large, but no problems with grip whatsoever, and I think is proportionate to the case. It has what I would describe as being like a curved coin edge for that, so you can see almost like a tire track type appearance for that. Very easy to grip a hold of. So despite the somewhat smaller size, no problems whatsoever as far as gaining traction on that. And then it is signed on the outside, you can see with their UBIQ there in the middle, and that does have some contrasting for the finishing. As far as the case back on this, as you'd probably expect for a field style, this is going to be a screw-in construction for the case back as well. It's a closed and it's a relatively simple case back. I don't mind that at all. I think it's in keeping with the style. They gave you the text that you need there. They kept it fairly basic as far as the construction. One of the things that I really like is they did that like Rolex type with the interior, or like the male or female, whatever you want to call it, type of key for that, to where you can put the tool in there if you have that specialty tool, or alternatively they have on the outer lip a more traditional keyway for that, where you can grab a hold of that with just anything you might have around as far as those type of options as well. So I really like that they did the dual key configuration, so especially for being a quartz on this one where you're going to have to change the battery, that's a nice touch there. So whatever tools you have or your watchmaker has, you should have no problem changing that around. And then as far as the thinness, as I already mentioned earlier, this is reasonably thin for this, so it does settle nicely into the wrist, so no real complaints there. As far as the bracelet, we'll focus on this first and then we'll check out the straps as well. The bracelet on this is tapered from 20 millimeters at the lugs down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. It is a 7-link configuration, so kind of like a flat beads of rice, and with that it has great articulation, as we'll check out. The links themselves, as I mentioned, are flat, so it's a nice clean appearance, though it is broken up and I think well complemented. Almost looks like a suit of armor, or that snakeskin kind of armor that you might see, or the chain link for that. So that's, I think, pretty cool there as well. As far as the finishing, this is going to be a full brushing as well. And again, just like with the side of the case, it does integrate, it ties in nicely because it's a very faint brushing. As I already mentioned earlier, this does include quick release spring bars on the back, as do the other straps as well. And then this also is held in or retained with screws. If you don't have a good quality screwdriver, I'll of course have one link down the video description. Do make sure you put Loctite on that, all those kind of good things. I also have a how-to video if you need any help there. But otherwise makes it easy just to get it sized up. The articulation, as I would expect for a small 7-link like this is, the articulation is fantastic. It drapes really nicely across the wrist. No complaints there. Has good lateral as well as running the length of that. So whether you're width or length, really excellent there. And it gets nice light play actually as well, despite the fact that this is fairly uniform as far as the finishing with having those 7 links. So that's great there. And then the clasp, additionally, this does feature a tooless micro adjust clasp. Definitely a little bit on the thick side, as is pretty much always the case with these, but I think it works well with this tool styling. You can see it's signed on the exterior. Nice clean incorporation. I like this with a smooth flow where the double pusher buttons are incorporated in there. Push that milled bridge on the inside. And then looking here, you have your toolless micro, and you can see just has a push button there, and then you just push that in. This is a ratchet style, so you can actually push that in without, and then you can just push that button a little bit hard to depress, not as hard as I'm making it look here on camera, and this is just a prototype too, but it does catch a little bit there sometimes, especially when it's in the closest position, but no real issues there. And like I said, it is not as bad as I'm making it look on camera, trying to work around the camera here. So I think that's a pretty good accent there as well. Shifting over to the straps though, as far as the 2 different strap options, these aren't broken in, so do keep that in mind, particularly for that marine plastic. For that, it is going to be a little bit stiff right now. However, I do expect that will break in nicely. It's listed as being vegan, though this actually says real leather, genuine leather on the interior, so I'm not sure if the production version is going to be changing on that or not. As far as the buckle, it does have a signed buckle for this as well. That's going to be just a fairly basic construction, but overall I think this is a nice way to change things up for the appearance, and it wears pretty decently on wrist, especially with having this shorter lug to lug, still wrist versatile. Shifting over to the nylon strap, this is just a single pass nylon strap, so a NATO style, so you probably know what to expect there. The keeper is sufficient as far as clearance, where you could take that tail and you can tuck that back in if you have a smaller wrist like myself. No problems as far as size range. There's a lot of holes that are available for this, so this should fit pretty much every wrist out there. And then again, just going to be color accents. This ties into like the chapter ring on this particular version with the black as well as that green accent for that. Alright, so now that we have all that out of the way, you should have a much better feel for this watch, but let's go ahead and bring in some comps before we wrap things up. First, this is next to a this is RZE, it's right side at that time, but RZE Resolute, this is their original version. This is a 40mm, another titanium, really puts me in mind of it, but you can see very different styling as far as those go. Then here it is next to a Zelos Aurora, and this is their 38mm version. So you can see a relatively similar presence, though I do think there is more to this UBIQ here. And then it just gives you an idea there as far as thickness. And then next up, this is a Zealandic Iceborne, and this is 39mm. Try to get a little bit of sizing in there. I do think with the lighter dial, as well as this slightly larger size, the Zealandic has a little more dial presence for that. And then finally, this is a Henry Archer, and this is their Vesterhoff, and this is a 40mm here. You can see, I think, again, stacks up relatively well, but a little bit less presence on the UBIQ. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up with my view of the pros, some critiques, as well as the summary. First, for the pros, I think this is a perfect grab-and-go option. Whether you go with this VH movement, which is especially grab-and-go, you don't have to worry about setting it or anything, or the 9039, you can put it in a winder, you can set it, or what have you. But no matter how you slice it, it's going to be a great, practical, versatile overall as far as with the layout, good legibility, relatively simplistic, decent sizing that I think is going to be pretty wrist versatile for most folks. Sure, it's going to be small for some, it's going to be a little too large for others, depending on your preferences, but I think it's well suited to the overall design. Just like with their past model, really fun colors with this. I love that they are not scared to be playful with things, but I think it works well. I don't think it's too niche, too bold for it, at least in my personal view, especially with like this blue with just the subtle green accents for it. But I think the colors are really excellent, really like that. The comfort is fantastic. Between the lightweight, the great articulation on this bracelet, across the board, there's really nothing to complain about. It's relatively thin. I actually think it wears even thinner than the 11.4 would denote. So just really nice there. Same thing with the sizing as well. The loom, as we already looked at, it's fantastic. There's really not much else I can say there. Great depth, great performance, excellent there. And then the value. I think this is pretty solid. So these are going to be starting for the VH movement is going to start at $239 $299 or $269 if you go with the full loom. The 9039 version is $369 starting, and that goes up to $399 for the full loom versions there. So really not too bad. That does not include the bracelet. That's going to be a stretch goal, and it's an extra $99. But even once you add that in there, that puts you to starting around the 340 to 470 territory, depending on whether you want the VH or the 9039. Either way, I really don't think that's bad for having the hardened titanium, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a pretty solid value. But what about some critiques? I said we would revisit the end links, despite the fact that these are fitted, and this isn't a real big problem, but I did notice it does definitely have some play on this prototype. You can kind of rock that. I'm not sure how well this is showing on camera, but you can actually force a gap into that. I haven't really had that before, and I think that's just because of the shorter nature of these lugs, but I do hope that they can tweak a little bit and get just a little more of a lip under there to make that a little more secure. No issues, I don't think, as far as functionally, just something I noticed, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. Additionally, as far as these first links, with these, because they do articulate in, I have found that sometimes it actually arrived. This is mainly for shipping and otherwise, but they were actually caught there, so I had to manually push them down again. Just a minor thing, and that's probably just the nature of it. And the reality is, in real world usage, you're probably not going to be folding that back, and in fact, you can actually get some wear on that. But just again, something I noticed, so I wanted to bring to your attention. And then finally, just a preference-based item. On this particular version, I'm not crazy about the choice to go with a black chapter ring for this. I think I might have actually preferred it. It would make it certainly more bold, so I appreciate the deft hand here, but I might have preferred if they actually reversed it and did that green and did a bright green for the chapter ring with black text on that, just as a possibility for it. But for me personally, I don't love the way it's not a real strong contrast, but at the same time, it's not close enough that it feels like it's real cohesive there either. So to me, the black just wasn't the best choice for this blue version, but again, that's just down to preference there. So where does that leave us? In my opinion, this is actually one of the better field options that I've seen in a while, as far as one that's still playful, while at the same time maintaining a decent amount of versatility, great comfort, great sizing. I just think it's well thought out and executed all the way around. So really, if this is one that you're in the market for, if you like this style, definitely encourage you to give this a look. And again, I'll have a link down in the video description. So with that, I hope this has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy it, do tap that like button. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you like the watch? Do you like any of the 4 particular colors more so than the others? Do you want the full loom? Do you want the more subdued there? All that kind of good stuff. Thanks for watching.